Jake had been working as a chef on the interspecies space station for a few months now, finding his rhythm among the diverse inhabitants from planets he could barely pronounce. His days were filled with the rhythmic chopping of ingredients and stirring of exotic alien stews. But at night, he retreated to his small, cozy cabin, a quiet sanctuary away from the bustling corridors. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, he fell in a bed, utterly worn out. The lights dimmed automatically, and the gentle hum of the space station filled the background. He had just started to drift off when a faint knock at his door jolted him awake. Confused, he groggily climbed out of bed and opened the door. Standing there was Lyla, his kitchen colleague from planet Vereen. Her large, emerald eyes seemed to glow faintly in the low light, and her violet skin shimmered under the hallway lights. She was dressed in casual flowing robes, or so he thought until he noticed she looked unusually flustered. "Jake," she said in a soft, urgent voice, "I need your help." Without another word, she slipped into his room, moving with an elegance that seemed almost otherworldly. Jake closed the door behind her, his mind racing with questions. He stood there blinking as Lyla moved to the center of his small cabin, glancing around as if searching for something. The gentle glow of her skin pulsed with an anxious energy. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes, trying to understand why she would be in his room at this hour. "Lyla, what's going on?" he asked, crossing his arms as he watched her, his curiosity piquing. She turned to face him, her gaze intense. "I know this is strange, but I didn't know who else to turn to," she said, her voice low and serious. "There's something I must show you, something I need you to understand." He could feel the urgency in her tone. "All right," he replied, offering a tentative smile. "I'm here to help." "What is it?" Lyla hesitated, her hands fidgeting with the edges of her robe. And for a brief moment, Jake saw an expression he had never expected to see from her: vulnerability. It was as if she was unsure how to proceed. Taking a deep breath, she looked back at him and lifted her robe just enough to reveal an intricate network of glowing lines that ran across her arms. He had noticed them before, but tonight they seemed to shift and swirl with a mesmerizing glow, almost as if reacting to her emotions. "These markings," she began, "they're not just patterns. They're a language, a form of communication. They reflect the energies around me, and lately they've been warning me of something." She paused, her expression tense. "I don't understand it, but I think you might be able to help." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" "I'm just a chef, Lyla. I don't know anything about alien markings or energies." Lyla offered a small smile, one that seemed both reassuring and somewhat sad. "That's the thing, Jake. It's not about what you know. It's about what you feel. I sensed at the moment we started working together. You have an intuition, a connection to the energies around you. You may not realize it, but I think it's why you've adjusted so well to life on this station. You can sense things others can't." He was taken aback. He'd never thought of himself that way. "I mean, I guess I do have a knack for knowing when a dish is missing a certain spice or when something's not quite right, but this seems much bigger." "It is," she said softly, her gaze unwavering. "And right now, I need your help to understand these signals. Something is coming, something that feels dangerous. I don't know what it is yet, but the markings, they're trying to tell me. I need you to help me figure it out." Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. He barely knew her outside of the kitchen, where she was efficient, focused, and often quiet. But seeing her in this vulnerable state stirred something within him. He nodded, meeting her gaze with newfound determination. "Okay, Lyla, let's figure this out. Tell me everything you know about these markings. Maybe together we can make sense of it." She exhaled in relief, her shoulders relaxing. She moved to sit on the edge of his bed, gesturing for him to join her. As she spoke, her voice took on a rhythmic quality, like the ebb and flow of an ocean tide. She explained that the markings on her skin were part of her Vereen heritage, a rare trait that only manifested in those with a deep connection to their planet's life force. Her people believed these markings could sense disturbances in the energies of the universe, and right now, they were signaling a shift, a disturbance so profound that it had pulled her to his door. Jake listened intently, absorbing every detail, even as his mind struggled to process the gravity of it all. He hadn't expected his evening to take this turn, but as he looked at Lyla, he felt a strange sense of purpose. "Can you show me how these markings work? Maybe if I see them in action, I can understand better," he asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and anticipation. Lyla nodded and took his hand, guiding it to her arm. The moment his fingers brushed her skin, the glowing lines began to swirl faster, as if reacting to his touch. A faint hum filled the air, vibrating through his fingers. Jake felt a surge of warmth flow through him, mingling with a sensation he couldn't quite describe, like a whisper at the edge of his mind. "Do you feel that?" she asked, her eyes searching his. He nodded, his heart racing. "Yeah, I feel something. It's like I can sense what you're feeling, almost as if our minds are connected." Lila's expression softened. "That's exactly it, Jake. We're connected now. The markings recognize your energy, and together we can amplify the signals. But I need you to focus. Let go of everything else and just feel." Jake closed his eyes, allowing himself to sink into the sensation. Slowly, the world around him began to fade away, replaced by a cascade of colors and shapes swirling in his mind's eye. He saw flashes of distant stars and felt the pulse of energy binding the universe together. Somewhere in the depths of it all, a dark presence loomed, one that sent a chill through his entire being. He opened his eyes, his breath shallow. "There's something dark out there, Lyla. I don't know what it is, but I felt it." She nodded, her expression grim. "That's what I feared. Whatever it is, it's coming for us, and we have to be ready." Jake swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. He didn't know what lay ahead, but as he looked at Lyla, he felt a spark of courage ignite within him. Together, they would face whatever was coming, and in that moment, he knew his life would never be the same again. The journey had just begun. The next morning, Jake found himself staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of the night in his mind. He hadn't slept much, but he didn't feel tired. Lila's urgent words and the strange energy he'd sensed in her markings left him restless and filled with questions. Something dark was approaching, and he felt it as if it were in the room with them. Lyla had left quietly in the early hours, promising they would meet again to delve deeper into what they'd uncovered. But now, in the bright, artificial light of morning, it all felt like a half-remembered dream. He was jolted from his thoughts by the familiar chime of the station's PA. The morning announcements echoed through his cabin, reminding him of his duties for the day. He needed to be in the kitchen soon, preparing breakfast for the station's residents. As he dressed, his mind was still on Lyla and the strange connection they'd shared. Entering the kitchen, he was met with the usual bustle of activity. His team of alien assistants was already hard at work, chopping and dicing ingredients from worlds he had never even heard of. Lyla was there too, moving with her usual grace, but today there was a tension in her shoulders and a slight hesitation in her movements. Jake approached her cautiously, keeping his voice low. "Lyla, about last night, do you think we should tell anyone?" She glanced around, ensuring they weren't overheard, then shook her head. "Not yet. Whatever this is, it's not something we want to share until we know more. People might panic, and we have no idea what we're dealing with. I need to gather more information first." He nodded, understanding her reasoning, but he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over him. As they worked, he kept a close eye on her, noticing the way her markings pulsed faintly whenever she was near him. It was a subtle reminder of the connection they forged, a bond that was as mysterious as it was powerful. The rest of the day passed in a blur, but as evening approached, Lyla approached him with a determined expression. "Meet me tonight," she whispered. "There's something I need to show you, something that might help us understand what we're up against." Jake agreed, and later that night they slipped out of the kitchen, making their way to a secluded section of the station. Lyla led him down a series of dimly lit corridors until they reached a small hidden room he had never seen before. It was filled with ancient-looking equipment, strange devices that hummed with a low, almost imperceptible frequency. "What is this place?" he asked, eyes wide as he took in the bizarre technology around him. "It's a monitoring station," she explained, her voice hushed. "The Arconians use it to track energy signatures across the galaxy. I was given access to it when I joined the station staff." I've been coming here for the past few nights, trying to make sense of the signals my markings are picking up. She moved to a console at the center of the room and activated a display. A series of lights and symbols appeared, forming a complex pattern that seemed to shift and change with each passing second. Jake watched, fascinated, as Lyla began to explain. These symbols represent energy patterns. I've been tracking them for days, and I think I found something, an anomaly. It's a disturbance in the energy field, something that doesn't belong, and it's getting closer. He stared at the display, trying to make sense of the shifting patterns. How do you know it's coming for us? She pointed to a specific section of the display where a small pulsing light was moving steadily toward a larger cluster of symbols. That's us, she said, indicating the cluster. And this, she gestured to the light, is the disturbance. It's moving at an incredible speed, and it's headed straight for the station. Jake's heart raced as he absorbed the implications of her words. So what do we do? How can we stop it? Lyla looked at him, her expression resolute. We need to send a signal of our own. The Arconians have a way of masking their energy signatures, creating a kind of shield. If we can mimic that, we might be able to protect ourselves from whatever this is. But I can't do it alone. I need your help to amplify the signal. He nodded, determination settling over him. Tell me what to do. Lyla began to adjust the controls on the console, guiding him through the process. As they worked, she placed her hand over his, and he felt the familiar warmth of their connection flaring to life. Together, they channeled their combined energy into the system, sending a pulse through the equipment. The lights on the display began to change, shifting in response to their efforts. The pulsating energy between Jake and Lyla intensified as they worked in harmony, their focused thoughts merging into a single purpose. The room vibrated with the resonance of their combined efforts, the air crackling with potential. As they tuned the console, the lights flickered in response, creating a mesmerizing display of colors that swirled across the walls, illuminating the small chamber. Lyla's eyes widened with concentration. We're almost there. Just a bit more power from your side. Imagine the energy we need. Channel it through your thoughts and let it flow. Jake nodded, closing his eyes momentarily to clear his mind. He envisioned the energy of the station surrounding them, the life force of all the beings aboard merging into a single thread of light. As he opened his eyes, he felt a rush of warmth flooding through him, a clear connection to the vibrant tapestry of existence surrounding them. Now, Lyla shouted, her voice cutting through the hum of their focus. Jake placed both hands on the console, drawing on the sensation of interconnectedness he felt. They unleashed their energy, sending it surging through the console. The device whirred to life, and the pulsing light on the display grew brighter, enveloping them in a soft glow. A loud beep echoed through the room, and the display shifted again. The pulsing light began to change, its rapid approach slowing slightly as they cloaked the station in a protective layer of energy. It's working, Lyla exclaimed, her voice filled with exhilaration. We're masking our signature. But just as the atmosphere filled with triumph, a sudden alarm blared from the console, shattering the moment. Jake's heart sank. What is that? He asked, his voice tight with anxiety. Something's wrong, Lyla replied, rushing to inspect the readings. The anomaly, it's reacting to our signal. It's still coming, and it's faster than I expected. Jake's stomach twisted as he read the flashing lights. Can't we increase the power? Push the signal further? Lyla hesitated, biting her lip. We could, but it might attract even more attention. If we push too hard, we risk destabilizing the shield. We have to find another way. The room was thick with tension as they weighed their options. Jake glanced at Lyla, her brow furrowed in thought, and he felt the weight of their predicament pressing down on him. Is there a way to redirect the energy? Can we send a warning to the other stations? Lyla's eyes brightened. Yes. If we can send out a distress signal on a separate frequency, we might be able to alert the nearby stations and gather assistance. But it means we'll have to split our focus. Can you handle the distress signal while I maintain the shield? He swallowed hard, knowing the stakes were high. I can do it. Just tell me what to do. As Lyla reprogrammed the console, Jake prepared himself for the task ahead. His hands moved deftly over the controls, searching for the right settings to send the distress signal. He felt the energy in the room shift, and he focused his thoughts on the urgency of their situation. "All right," Lyla said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "On my count, we'll launch the distress signal. I'll keep the shield stable while you send the message." Jake nodded, adrenaline coursing through him. "I'm ready. 3, 2, 1 now." They worked in unison, Lyla maintaining the energy field while Jake sent the distress signal into the void of space. The console beeped in response, and he felt a rush of energy surge through him as the signal shot out. For a moment, there was silence. Then a series of replies pinged back, signals from other stations acknowledging their distress call. But as they monitored the responses, the pulsing light on the display began to flicker wildly. Jake's heart sank. "Lyla, the anomaly, it's gaining speed." "I see it," she replied, her voice a mix of fear and determination. "We need to increase our shield strength. I can't hold it much longer." Jake felt a wave of panic rise within him, but he forced himself to stay calm. "We can do this. Just focus." Together, they poured their energy into the console, their hands moving in sync as they fought to stabilize the shield. The lights flickered and dimmed, the display flashing warnings as they felt the pressure of the approaching force. "Hold on," Lyla shouted as a shockwave of energy crashed against their shield, rattling the room. The lights dimmed further, and for a moment, Jake feared they might fail. But Lyla's voice cut through the chaos. "We can't give up. Together." As if responding to her words, the energy between them surged. Jake closed his eyes, channeling every ounce of strength he had, and in that moment, he felt an overwhelming connection, not just to Lyla, but to the station, the inhabitants, and the very fabric of the universe itself. It was as if he could feel the heartbeat of every being aboard, a reminder that they were not alone. Suddenly, he had a revelation. "Lyla," he called out, opening his eyes. "What if we amplify the signal by connecting it to the life force around us? We could use the energy from the station's core." Lyla's eyes widened with realization. "Yes, the core is powerful enough to strengthen our shield. We can channel its energy to reinforce our signal." Without hesitation, she began recalibrating the console again, her fingers dancing over the controls as Jake followed her lead. He focused his thoughts on the core, imagining the pulse of energy radiating from it. Together, they poured their collective energy into the console, drawing from the very heart of the station. The room vibrated with intensity as the shield expanded, shimmering with a brilliant light that pushed back against the approaching anomaly. The pulsing light on the display slowed, fluctuating as they matched its rhythm with their own. "We're doing it!" Jake exclaimed, feeling the rush of victory coursing through him. "It's stabilizing." Lyla beamed at him, her eyes bright with determination. "Just a little more." They worked tirelessly, focusing their energy on the console, channeling the station's life force into their shield. The anomaly flickered on the display, its approach now hesitant, as if unsure of its course. But just when they thought they had a moment of reprieve, the lights in the room flickered ominously, and the console emitted a loud alarm. "What's happening?" Jake shouted over the din. "The anomaly is shifting. It's responding to our signal," Lyla cried, her hands flying over the controls. "It's trying to break through." Jake felt a surge of panic wash over him. "We can't let it through. We have to hold the line. Together," Lyla urged, her eyes locked onto his. "Feel the connection. We can do this." He nodded, forcing himself to breathe, to focus. With every ounce of strength they had left, they poured their energy into the shield, visualizing it as a barrier of light surrounding the station. The colors swirled around them, an intricate dance of energy and determination. The room trembled as the anomaly collided with their shield, the force nearly knocking them off their feet. But they stood firm, their connection amplifying the energy as the light pulsed in rhythm with their hearts. With one final surge of power, the shield shimmered brighter than ever before. The console blared with alarms as the display flickered, and for a fleeting moment, the anomaly hesitated, its pulsing light dimming as if caught in a web of energy. "Now!" Lyla shouted, and they both focused their minds, channeling all they had into a final, powerful blast of energy. The room erupted in blinding light, and Jake felt the force of their combined strength ripple through the air. In that instant, they pierced the darkness surrounding the anomaly, the light expanding outward in a wave that seemed to echo across the cosmos. The anomaly flickered one last time, then dissolved into a cascade of shimmering particles, scattering harmlessly into the void. Silence enveloped the room as they both stood breathless, the glow of their shield fading gradually. The console beeped softly, the display stabilizing as they realized the danger had passed. "We did it," Jake whispered, hardly able to believe it. Lyla turned to him, her eyes shining with a mix of relief and gratitude. "We did. Together." But before they could celebrate, a new alarm blared from the console. "What now?" Jake asked, his heart sinking once more. Lyla rushed to the console, her expression shifting to one of concern. "It's a response from the nearby stations. They've detected the disturbance, and they're on their way." Jake's stomach twisted as he processed the implications. "They're coming here? What do we tell them?" Lyla hesitated, biting her lip. "We have to be honest. They need to know what happened, and we need their help to prepare for whatever this disturbance might be. If it was strong enough to send out a signal like that, we can't take any chances." Jake nodded, steeling himself. "All right, let's do this. We can't keep it to ourselves." As they prepared to send their report to the other stations, Jake glanced at Lyla, a newfound understanding passing between them. This wasn't just about survival. It was about unity, connection, and facing the unknown together. The cosmos stretched out before them, vast and mysterious. But in that moment, he knew they had each other, and together, they could face whatever shadows lay ahead. The moments after the signal went out felt like an eternity. Jake and Lyla stood side by side, the console humming quietly as they awaited responses from the nearby stations. The eerie silence was broken only by the occasional beep from the system, each one heightening the tension in the air. Jake could feel his heart racing, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. "How long do you think it will take?" he asked, glancing at Lyla, who, "Hard to say," she replied, her voice steady, but Jake could see the flicker of anxiety in her golden eyes. "They'll prioritize our distress signal, but it depends on their readiness and proximity." Just then, a series of notifications blinked on the console, and Jake leaned closer, his breath catching in his throat. "We're getting responses." Lyla quickly moved to his side, her eyes darting over the incoming messages. "We need to prepare. If they're coming here, we have to make sure we're ready to receive them. We need to brief them on what happened and our current situation." Jake nodded, his mind racing. "Right? Let's summarize everything, starting with the anomaly and the protective measures we set in place." As they began to compile their report, the room buzzed with an undercurrent of urgency. They quickly outlined the details: the anomaly's approach, the shield they created, the connection they formed, and the energy signatures they had tracked. Jake felt a mix of pride and disbelief as they recounted their efforts, realizing how much had transpired in such a short time. After several tense minutes, the console chimed again, signaling an incoming transmission. Lyla's eyes widened with anticipation. This could be them. Jake leaned in closer, and the screen flickered to life, revealing a view of a sleek, silver ship docked nearby. The familiar insignia of the Arconian Coalition adorned its side, a stylized emblem representing unity among different species. "Greetings, Chef Jake and Lyla of the Orion Space Station." A voice resonated from the console, smooth and authoritative. It belonged to Commander Tarek, a well-respected figure within the Coalition. His sharp features were softened by the warm glow of the screen. "We receive your distress signal and are here to assist. What is the status of the station?" Jake and Lyla exchanged a quick glance before Jake stepped forward. "Commander Tarek, thank you for responding so quickly. We've encountered a significant disturbance in the energy fields nearby. The anomaly was approaching us at an alarming rate, but we managed to create a protective shield. Lyla chimed in. We also sent out a distress signal to alert the other stations. We believe there's a chance that the disturbance is part of something larger, perhaps a shift in the energy dynamics of the sector. Tarek nodded, his expression serious. Understood. We've noticed fluctuations in the energy readings from various points in the sector as well. We suspect this could be a precursor to a larger event. I recommend we rendezvous at the docking bay for a full briefing. Of course, Jake replied, his heart racing at the prospect of more assistance. We'll meet you there. As the transmission ended, Jake turned to Lyla, who was already preparing to leave the small room. We need to gather whatever information we can and prepare for their arrival, she said, her voice firm. Right? Let's not keep them waiting, Jake agreed, his mind racing with the implications of what they had just learned. The two hurried through the winding corridors of the station, their footsteps echoing against the metallic walls. Jake felt the adrenaline coursing through him, a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. They were about to meet allies who could potentially help them understand the anomaly and the greater threat it might represent. As they approached the docking bay, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The room was bustling with activity, other station staff members moving swiftly to prepare for the incoming delegation. Jake and Lyla exchanged nods with familiar faces as they navigated through the throng of bodies. Once inside the docking bay, they found a designated area where Commander Tarek and his team were already setting up equipment for the briefing. A holographic display flickered to life, casting a blue hue across the room as they prepared to project the latest readings. Jake! Lyla! A voice called out, pulling Jake's attention away from the console. It was Dr. Maid, the station's lead scientist. Her eyes were wide with excitement and concern. I heard what happened. Are you both all right? We're fine, Lyla replied, stepping forward. We managed to hold off the anomaly, but we need your expertise now more than ever. Tarek and his team are here to help. Dr. Maid nodded, her expression shifting to one of determination. Good. I've been monitoring the energy fluctuations, and it's unlike anything we've seen before. The markings on your skin, Lyla, could they have any connection to this? Lyla touched her arm instinctively, the glowing patterns still visible beneath her skin. I believe so. They reacted to the anomaly, and we felt a connection as we worked to stabilize our shield. It seems like they may be attuned to the energy around us. Interesting, Dr. Maid said, her mind racing with possibilities. We should definitely explore that further. But first, let's gather everyone for the briefing. As they prepared for the arrival of the Arconian team, Jake felt a rush of camaraderie. Everyone was united in their mission to understand and confront the impending threat. The atmosphere in the docking bay shifted as Tarek and his crew entered, a mix of confidence and urgency radiating from them. Thank you for gathering so promptly, Tarek said, addressing the assembled team. As you may know, we are facing a disturbance that could potentially affect not just your station, but the entire sector. We need to understand its origin and nature before we can effectively deal with it. Jake watched as the team members exchanged information, their voices rising and falling in discussion. Tarek gestured for Jake and Lyla to step forward. We'd like to hear about your first-hand experience with the anomaly. Please share everything you observed. Taking a deep breath, Jake relayed the events of the previous night, how the anomaly had approached the station, their efforts to establish a shield, and the connection they had felt between Lyla's markings and the energy around them. As he spoke, the room fell into a focused silence, the only sound being the soft hum of the console. When he finished, Tarek nodded, taking in the information. This is crucial. It aligns with what we've been observing across the sector. We suspect the anomaly could be a precursor to an energy wave, a force that, if left unchecked, could destabilize entire systems. Dr. Maid frowned, her brow furrowed in concentration. We must find a way to trace the source of this energy wave. If we can identify its origin, we might be able to divert or neutralize it before it reaches any inhabited planets. Lyla stepped forward, her expression resolute. I believe my markings can help. If we can create a connection between our energies, I might be able to pinpoint the disturbance's location. Tarek considered her proposal carefully. That could work, but it will require all of us to coordinate our energy signatures. We'll need to gather everyone's readings and create a comprehensive map of the sector. Jake felt a surge of hope. We can do it. Together, we can channel our energies and create a unified signal that can lead us to the anomalies. Exactly, Lyla agreed, her gaze fixed on Tarek. If we can amplify our connection, we might be able to not only track the disturbance, but understand its purpose. Then let's begin, Tarek said, his voice steady. Time is of the essence, and the more data we gather, the better prepared we'll be. As the team rallied together, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were not just defending their station. They were uniting with allies to face a greater threat. He glanced at Lyla, who met his gaze with a determined smile. They would figure this out together. The atmosphere in the docking bay shifted again, charged with anticipation. The crew sprang into action, preparing the consoles and gathering readings. Jake felt the energy in the room swell as they began to work in tandem, their shared goal drawing them closer. The holographic display projected a map of the sector, energy readings fluctuating in real time as they set to work. Jake focused his thoughts on the task, feeling the connection between him and Lyla grow stronger with every passing moment. As the team coordinated their efforts, they gathered readings and insights from various stations. With each update, Jake could sense the excitement building. They were on the brink of something significant. Finally, Tarek called for everyone's attention, his expression serious. We're narrowing down the anomaly's location. Jake, Lyla, I need you two to channel your energy into this console. Your connection could provide the final piece of the puzzle. Jake nodded, and Lyla stepped closer to him, their hands brushing against each other as they positioned themselves at the console. The room fell into a focused silence once more, and Jake could feel the anticipation in the air. On my count, Tarek instructed. 3, 2, 1 now. Jake closed his eyes, letting the energy around him flow through him as he felt Lyla's presence beside him. He could feel their connection amplifying, a surge of warmth enveloping them. The console responded, lights flashing as their combined energies surged into the system. As they focused, a vivid array of colors exploded on the holographic display, swirling and shifting until a clear pattern emerged, a dark, pulsing mass highlighted against the backdrop of the sector. There it is, Dr. Mela exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. That's the anomaly. Jake opened his eyes, his heart racing. We can track it, but we need to move fast before it shifts again. Tarek nodded, his expression resolute. We need to gather more data on its trajectory and see how we can mitigate its impact. We'll also need to alert other stations to prepare for possible evacuations if it comes to that. Jake felt a surge of determination. They were ready to face the unknown together, united as allies against a threat that loomed larger than any of them had anticipated. As they worked together, Jake realized that this was just the beginning of their journey, a journey filled with danger and uncertainty, but also one filled with hope, camaraderie, and the promise of something greater. The cosmos awaited, and they would face it together.